Welcome everyone to the podcast that will soon have a name. We actually are recording this podcast while we haven't decided what's going to be called yet. But you've seen an introduction, and we've already, meanwhile, post edits, decided what's the name. But the current us don't know what's the name of this podcast. And I'm here with Mafalda, my co-host, and she's an amazing producer and has been doing a lot of things at Nerd Monkeys. In particular, she worked on Out of Line, our most recent published game. And I'm with Olof. Olof has been the best Swede person that I've ever met. It was the most hospitality, amazing, great experience that I've had thanks to Olof. And to be honest, I don't have that many people that I know that are from Sweden, but he's for sure the most happy one that I've ever met. Uh,
Setting the bar for all Swedish people.
exactly. So the what I'm going to do at the start of this podcast is essentially explain a little bit of why, because there's so many podcasts around, and some of them also for about game dev, and in what way our podcast is going to be something that is interesting for you, and I would say. That's the best way is to maybe Mafalda you tell what's your objectives and what do you intend to do on your end with this podcast.
Yeah, so one of the big things that we've been doing together at Nerd Monkeys is whenever me and Diogo go to an event, and we bring back that knowledge to our studio people, to interns, and even to schools. Whenever then we go around and talk to younger kids wanting to get into game dev, and they're very surprised by the things that we say that we do, like or you know opportunities that are open up, when, for example, again, it's not so it can be an opportunity that is not common or popular. I'll give you an example. I was just at Pocket Gamer, and we are a PC and console studio, and there's a lot of people saying, oh, but like, aren't they just for mobile games? Are you going to find anything there? And so we thought, okay, maybe there's like a lot of people that cannot see these opportunities or don't understand how to just like think differently about what events mean. And so that is a bit of the reason why we started doing this. Another reason is to stay connected even when you're far away.
Yeah. So wait, don't reveal too much, Mafalda, yet. It's too early, too early. We do have some surprises for this podcast, but okay, I'll quickly on my end. I really want to create something that is useful for other game developers. I've always been as much as possible involved with game dev communities, and I feel that I needed to find a way to have a wider reach, and to share exactly what Mafalda was saying. In particular, whenever I travel, I'm always looking for opportunities for myself, for my company, and there's no reason why not for me to try and share that the reasoning behind why did I go to X place, and how and what the strategies I used, and also other than the opportunities that we try to find, we also create interesting content that we can more easily share with others if we have a wider reach. So hopefully you'll understand what's the objective behind this podcast. It might not be anything like this. It might be a terrible podcast and you'll just get through half of this episode. So Olaf, because you're the invited here, what do you think? Let's be our audience just for a little while, and what do you think about what we're creating here?
I mean, it's first of all, I should say that I'm actually not a game developer, so I'm not the right audience for this. I mean, I do love games. I've played games since as long as I can remember, and then now I work with the games industry in a lot of ways, which is fantastic. So for that reason, it's always nice to and being connected with those that work within your passion area or area of passion is always a good thing. And even though you mentioned that there's a lot of podcasts out there, some of them are for game development and others, and of course for 1,000 other subjects, not all podcasts are made equal. So some might be super technical, others are like more laid back, more talking about the opportunities, showcasing the opportunities, like how, if you want to be a game developer, how do you get into being a game developer on the more both social and professional side. So I think this is a great initiative, and I'm really honored to be the first guest.
Give a little bit more context on how are you a part of the game industry? Because for me, like, it's so important to showcase other areas that are not directly connected to development, that they make our industry anyway. They're very important as well. And sometimes if we're very developer focused, we forget that opportunities also comes from connection with people that might work in events, that might work in marketing, that might work in other things. So
yeah, sure. I can give a short pitch about myself and what it is that I do. So I work for for local government, you could say, in the southernmost part of Sweden. I work for an organization that is called Invest in Skåne, and Skåne is the name of the region. And I work with investment promotion, which is basically a subsidized service from the local government for both local and international companies or global companies that are interested to know what our region can offer them in business opportunities, and we try to help them either establish, find business partners, find contacts, whatever it might be. And this is a service free of charge, no matter how big or how small your company is. And I work primarily within the tech industry, and that includes the games industry in our portfolio. So that is what I do. So I help both local companies go outside Sweden and become international in some way or another, or I help international companies discover southern Sweden. And that is how I met Diogo and Nerd Monkeys in London, I believe it was last year.
It was. It's true. I don't remember the details, actually. But I do remember it was in London.
Yeah, and so if you just want to follow up on that, was that important to you to know someone like Olof?
So
despite you being the best Sweden you know.
The introduction with Olof was something that, from what I recall, was something like, do you want to come to Sweden for a couple of days and be there? You'll have a free space for your studio, like just 3 months or something. I don't know. I was like, oh yeah, I know nothing about Sweden, but I would love that. There's one thing that I'll add here, which is so Olof is from Sweden, so he's very organized, prepares everything on time. I'm sure every Sweden person does that. And I'm Portuguese, which is precisely the most chaotic, impromptu thing that can possibly be. So even for this particular episode, I don't think that Olof knew when it was going to be recorded up until 5 minutes before. So yeah, that's the type of introduction that he might have had when we met. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember his offer of saying, look, here in southern Sweden, it's the best part of Sweden. I didn't say that, okay? But and you have
reasons why it is best if you want.
I think he made one of those polite invitations of saying, look, you can come, I'll be there to receive you. And I was like, I will take you up on that. And then I sent him a message on LinkedIn and says, look, I'm going to Sweden. When? In a couple of days. And he said, you shouldn't come in these days. These dates are terrible to come here. It's midsummer.
Oh, you were the one that told Diogo about midsummer.
Yeah. It's midsummer. And I was like, what is midsummer? I don't know what midsummer is.
He didn't even have the Airbnb. So I had so much anxiety.
Wait. So Mafalda wants me to tell this. Okay, it's important for her that I tell this, which is, I did book the flights. I didn't book the place we're going to stay, and we just went and we figured it out when when we were there. So and I'm alive. So and it was a very small backpack, which annoys Mafalda as well considerably, because I fly very tight. I don't like to have big backpacks. Anyway, and I said to Olof, yeah, I'll be there these dates. And it was like, what? You are? Yeah, and but to his credits, he did show up there. It was so hot in Sweden. I was expecting snow. That's what I know about Sweden. I arrived there. It was
It snows all year round.
Almost, yeah. No,
It was-
we had a really good summer this year, and you really hit the perfect timing for, at least for the weather. So yeah.
it was 34 degrees Celsius there. I was sweating. I was like, what is happening? This is not supposed to be. It's hotter here than in Lisbon today. Why? Um, but yeah, so that's what happened. The reasoning of going to Sweden was, and you probably remember that, Olof. I said, when you presented the idea, I said, "Oh, more people should know about this." Right, and I immediately say this could be a podcast, like something like this could be a video, or this could be, and I went straight to Tom Scott, right? Tom Scott, I'm going to do something like Tom Scott, but I don't have the talents for that.
Dirk so tell the same thing for me, and I was like, yeah, we're not going to edit videos and do that. I think you said something very interesting because that's what we see a lot, that is like, oh yeah, people don't know about this, or sometimes like they don't know about the event or the opportunity, or just that they can reach out. I think the game industry as a whole is very approachable, and it's very easy for you to go anywhere and just like put on your Twitter, I'm here, anyone to grab a coffee, and you can have those connections. Why do you think that is for you, Olof? Because it's different, right? Because I think developers are more keen to maybe see, oh, there's a game jam, maybe I'll be there, or but if it's like an investment event, and if you're not in a position where you're a producer or whatever, maybe you wouldn't go. And I think it would be helpful for a lot type of developers, right? Because there's people trying to do their own thing. Solo deving, or maybe at some point in your career you might do something different, or you might grow into management roles and things like that. And it's also always interesting to have those connections. So like a little bit of your perspective, but then also, where are you normally at? Like where is the places that you think, okay, yeah, these are the normal circuit I do to showcase what we do here in Sweden?
That's a really good question. I mean, depends a little bit on. I'm very fortunate to be very free in my role, so I get to choose a lot. But I also talk to the ecosystem that we have here in southern Sweden about where they want to be seen and where they think is a really good place to be, either for business, for networking, or whatever it might be. So in Europe, I'll start with where we have the most presence, and try to go chronologically throughout the year. So the first big event that we have is London Games Festival. That's the first one on our agenda, which is in April, end of April, beginning of May, I think it is, or March, April. I forget. I should know. I've been working with this for the entire
this year
week.
is March, April. It's
Yeah,
April.
okay. Yeah, so it's the end of March then. So that's the first one, which is there is sort of this idea or way of thinking, at least in Sweden, because the UK is or used to be the financial center of Europe and the European Union. Now not so much. Still a very big city and or big country in terms of that. And if your game sells well or does well in the British market or the UK market, it will do well on a global English-speaking market. So being able to be seen and work with UK game developers or British game developers is a big thing. Also, London Games Festival has a lot of other things around it. They have the BAFTAs, they have the showcase, or various types of showcase throughout the week or 2 weeks where the event is being held, not just for business but also for people that enjoys game develop or games culture, I should say. So that's the first one. And then the second one on our agenda is, of course, Nordic Game Conference, which is based in Malmö, where I am based, or where the games industry in southern Sweden is based. So it's one of the largest game developer conferences in Europe. I think this year is the 20th iteration. So it's not been around for 20 years because they've done double events a few years in a row, especially during the Corona years. And it's 17 years old or something like that. So it's the 20th anniversary or 20th iteration, and it's usually super well received. Since I'm not a game developer, I can't speak for the contents in the like learning speak talks or anything like that. But there's a very laid back, very very easy, very comfortable atmosphere, which is great. I mean, I've been to a lot of other events in other industries. Some of them are really uptight. You have to wear a suit, you have to wear a tie, and I mean, I wear
Your
shirt.
worst nightmare.
Yeah, exactly, almost. And there everything is gray or very muted colors. But when you go to a game developer conference, everything is like a lot of colors, a lot of like moving parts and everything, and people are just great. So that's the first one. The second one, and then we have, I think this year we actually have a few more. So on my calendar this year, I have I forget the name, but it's in Dubrovnik.
The reboot.
Yeah, Reboot. Yeah, exactly. Reboot developed Blue, and then
I want to go. It's
yeah,
so pretty. The
we haven't
location.
decided it. Yeah, exactly. It's, I mean, they sold me with the fact that it's where King's Landing is in a Game of Thrones series. So, and then I'm going to, and then after that it's probably going to be Gamescom in Cologne. I mean, which is a must if you are in Europe, basically at least once. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best place for doing business or the first event you should go to as a new game developer in that sense, because it's so overwhelming. I forget how many people it was last year, and that was still like in the after suites of Corona, like 40,000 people, 60,000 people or something like that. And it's long. It's almost a week long of an event. So
because you have DevCon together with
Gamescom.
Yeah,
it's exhausting, really. It is a great time, though. I'm not like discouraged. I'm not saying that's bad. It's a fantastic experience.
But I don't want to cut you off about like giving the list, but you already talked to a lot of points that are very important to keep, and I didn't want to go over this one because it's very important. I think a diversity of types of events, it's very important your if you're pitching throughout. Because for example, you go to a very small event where maybe there's like the publisher you want there. Happened to us, right? They would meet up with us because they had space. There wasn't many devs there. It was more local, or I would say events like I forgot the name, but there's like a really small one-day event in the Netherlands. And the event that we made as well, investing in the games and things like that, they're very like 1 day, 2 days, something that's sometimes very familiar. Therefore, you can have those one-on-one. And then if you go to something very big like Gamescom, sometimes it's more about just who is who. If you already know some people, it's more about pads. Is more about keeping that connections going. It's not a good place to do the first impression, I would say.
No, I completely agree, and that is at least something that I, as a non-game developer who is trying to do business within the games industry, has noticed that being these big events they're more like a festival or a carnival for game developers to basically just hang out, and sometimes some business happens in like around it, but most people are there unless you're one of the major studios that are having like a huge showcase, a new launch for the game or whatever. Then it's just going around and speaking to friends, and because all the publishers, there are so many people there anyway. So publishers and investors are jam packed with meetings anyway. So it's no use trying to have like you can of course try to have a serious agenda and actually do work. And there are so many days that at least a few days should be work focused. But
Just to add
it's difficult.
to the intensity of Gamescom, the after the 2019 Gamescom, I said, "Oh, I need to go to the gym because this is very aggressive." I did around over 20K steps every day, just going around to meetings, because I didn't have the booth. But I was scheduling meetings, and it's that's very intensive. It's a lot, and you come back destroyed and in need of vacation.
Oh
And
yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah.
and again, it's just not something that is like, oh yeah, if you go to the biggest of them all, then it's the
Mm,
one that you get more business.
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah, yeah. That's definitely not the strategy that I would describe. Yeah, I like you said, everyone should at least once go. But the biggest opportunities that I think I've had weren't generated at Gamescom. They were generated along several events, and in some occasions they might culminate at Gamescom, but not necessarily the step where you actually start things. Yeah.
Well, I haven't been to GDC yet, but I think it definitely should apply there too,
mm,
or like whatever is like big events around the world. Just in the sense that um, networking and just like in business development overall, it's called development for a reason, right?
mm.
And if you are a game developer watching this, you know that like like takes a while. So business is the same thing.
Yeah.
You're connecting to those people, making sure you're not some weird online. You're a real person and you have real intent, and then you guys are aligning in the way that you think business, because
Mm.
like it's not about being friends exactly, but it's about having same approaches
Oh
that
yeah.
match, right? Because like I would say, especially for you, that you're building something there has like a local focus, for example.
Yeah.
I would say that having visions that align to what you guys want to develop in that part of the world, it
Mm.
must be the big things, right? As you were describing, for example, just about thinking, okay, I need to go to London because I know, again, business wise, the
Yeah.
games that have opportunities there would do good around English speaking
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
countries.
Mm. No, for sure. There are some aspects to that, and but again, having the local press, it's almost more important as long as you have some kind of ecosystem or environment
Mhm.
locally that you can expand on. Because I mean, it's in other businesses as well. You meet someone, you start a company, or like you start working on something.
Mhm.
You realize, oh, this has potential. Let's do something about it. Where do we get our first money, or like angel investor, or the first, like it's friends and family and the sweat equity, right? For the most part, and if you're a budding game developer, or like starting out, and you have a really cool concept, and maybe you've worked for a game studio before but never done the business side, and you think that you're going to make it big at Gamescom, or any of the larger ones, I think that's a very I mean, if you make it, some people might make it, but I think the probability is quite low. And just speaking, since you mentioned GDC, I have a friend from, or a colleague from our ecosystem, who is going to GDC, but he's been there uh, more times than he can count, basically. But he never goes into the business, or like the event area anymore. He's not done that for several years. He takes all his meetings outside, because he knows everyone, or everyone that he wants to meet. They he'll get referred to by other people who like, oh, you should
Mm.
meet these guys. Yeah, and he's like, okay, but I'm too old for being in the GDC conference hall. So I'm gonna take all my meetings at this hotel or this coffee shop or whatever, because there's too many people and too much noise, and I get too tired, and I don't want to go 20,000 steps today or whatever. So I depending on like how much of a veteran you are, I think you figure this out. But if you're just starting out, I mean, you have to do some legwork, which I guess, and that you also experience a lot. So I think
And but putting on that note, like on this, like veteran versus starting out, I think like veterans know that the events are important. They just use it differently, and but there's like a side of starting out sometimes, especially
Yeah.
I think after COVID, where there's a lot of line that they might have that experience of maybe I don't need to go anywhere.
Mm,
And those are like overrated, overpriced.
yeah.
Uh, I don't know, I can be online doing things. So what do you think about that element? I know Diogo has an opinion as well, because we have students,
I do have a very strong
yeah,
opinion
we
on
have
that.
students having that exact perspective. So I don't know if you want to give like a student's perspective, and maybe you, Olaf, could give like, I don't know if you know anyone that has that'll ever approach you saying like, yeah, but why do we need to go to travel to be?
I've had that reasoning from my superiors, because I mean, I'm using, whenever I go somewhere, I'm using public funds, so I have to motivate why we should go. And if I had the network already, which mean that I could sit in a hotel in Gamescom and do everything, then I would suggest that probably. But it's also about depending a little bit on the event. Our region is very small, and we usually don't have that amount of companies that could, so we could have a booth at Gamescom, for instance. It would be too expensive for us. But what we do have is other events where we can showcase, and then it's much more important. It's not that I have the meetings, but I bring the companies that don't necessarily have the funds to be seen at these events. So I organize the booth, I organize a side event usually, or like how to get there, and we go as a delegation. So that is something that I organize, and that is so I have to, and if the companies, so in order, so that's how I motivate it to my superiors, or the reasons why we should be there, because this event has brand recognition. There's going to be a lot of interesting people, investors, learning opportunities, business opportunities, and so forth for the companies, not only for me, but for the companies as well. And we hopefully get someone to recognize that there's a part of Sweden where games industry is quite strong, and things spill out there, basically.
Yeah. So adding to what you were saying, in my experience in younger devs and particular students, I've seen that reaction of why would I spend money to go to an event, which from my perspective sounds absolutely insane and really really odd, because it's exactly what we were saying. It's about building your circle, your networking circle. And when you start out, there's very few people. Literally, if you just started, you barely know anyone working in games. And as you expand and go to game jams and game dev meetups, etc., you expand your circle with other game developers. And suddenly, when you meet the first publisher or a potential investor, then your circle expands slightly more, and they will connect you with someone else, and you'll get invited for a party. And in that party you actually meet this superstar, which that can't help you directly but can introduce you to someone else, and it grows and grows and grows and grows. And this, after 10 years, you realize two things: you are 10 years older, but ignoring the existential crisis, you realize that now a lot of people. That's important, but you need to reach there. You need to go there, right? You need to meet. You also have to remember that you are starting out as well as many others, with your own age and your own generation of developers and investors, and we all grow together, and we all go together in this journey. So we will meet again and again and again. So we're not just creating business opportunities, we are also creating friendships along the way.
Yeah. It is important, no matter what type of dev or people in the game industry that you are, because when we say business opportunities, I know that you and I and Olive for sure as well, interpreting this as just like business is everything, right? Everything that opens you doors. For us, for example, it can mean like we are hiring someone. We connected to now a studio that's working with us. It doesn't mean like just investment. And I
Exactly.
think people that just go there. It's like
Yeah.
business opportunities is only like investors and publishers or whatever.
Mm.
And so I would like you to add a little bit on what you just said on your experience, for example, with game dev communities and
Mhm.
just that community aspect that we build, and you have done that before than I did, because I think it's very interesting that you didn't start by doing game dev, right?
Mm, mm. No,
How
I
did you
mean,
start connecting to like the game industry sometimes? Because for example, for me was I was just like a student, and then I had a friend. We are
mm,
starting indie studio, whatever, and we started just attending the things. We
yeah.
we were the people first.
Mm.
Uh, so yeah, so if both of your perspectives is you have a little bit of like where you started. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, um, I started work. I got a chance to work with the games industry from the work that I have now. So when I was hired at the organization I work for now, they asked me what industry would you like to work with, and I said, yeah, I'll probably want to work within tech because that's what I know the best. I have an economics background, so I don't have like tech industry knowledge in that sense, but I'm very curious, and I'm a people person and stuff like that. So, and my job is not to know the specifics of coding language or what this particular device does or what anything like that, is to see the opportunities that a company can offer another company or an investor looking for this or whatever type of company. So when they asked me what industry, I said tech. And when they said, okay, which area within tech would you like to work with? And I said, is there anyone working with the games industry in our region? And they're like, oh no, but that's a good idea. And for me, that was mind blowing that nobody had even thought about working with it, because I mean, we didn't know then, but that this was just before the pandemic, and the games industry skyrocketed after that. But it was already going, at least in Sweden, quite substantially. And the game, especially within southern Sweden, where I think we have 6 of the 7 largest studios in Sweden have an office in southern Sweden. It's all companies like Massive, IO Interactive, Avalanche, King, and Shark Mob, for instance. So I was like, yes, I want to work with that industry and give something back, particularly, or try to help give something back, because I always played games. Some of my best or earliest game memories and experiences are actually with massive games when they still did RTSs. So I started building my network within the normal local ecosystem and saying, hey, this is what our organization and our community can offer you guys, and we can help you go international as well. And I was very much a newbie at what I did, so I was using mostly my enthusiasm to get things done. But now I have at least some idea of what I'm doing and where I want to go. So it's been, and I'm still learning. Like I don't know the ins and out and of publishing, of co-production, or even how investments within the games industry work. But fortunately, that is not my core focus. My core focus is to give opportunities to other companies, basically. So I have a get out of jail free card there for the for the technical aspects of the work, basically. So yeah, that is how I started working with the games industry.
So yeah, I think I'll segue this into the reason why I was in Sweden in terms of opportunity. Okay, so the objective of my trip there was to visit a game habitat. I'll give you the summary of the memory experience I had. Okay, oh I remember perfectly that when you showcased the place, I noticed that there were a lot of rooms with incubated developers there, and it was a lot actually. It's a very big building there, and it has this amazing area where people eat and have coffee together. It's this giant coffee machine with pressure knobs and everything. It looks something out of NASA from the 70s or something. And I remember also that there was this big studio there I don't know if I can say names or not, but there was this Fika place that you showcased it. Fika is the outside place. Is that the name, or is this the inside place? I don't remember.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The balcony area.
The balcony, yeah, yeah. And there was a sauna there, so for the developers. And you also told me about the building expansion plans that you would like to have for this. So did I catch did I summarize my experience there? Well,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so fantastic to hear someone else talk about it, because for me, it's like, yeah, I've been there so many times and I know what they do, and hearing someone else's perspective is just so nice. And you realize how, I mean, it's a good place basically, and that's the point. So yeah, the game habitat is actually not an incubator. It's actually just, in the simplest term, it's just an office hotel specifically for game developers, run by a game developer community organization called Game Habitat. So the building is called Dev Hub, and the organization is called Game Habitat. And it's like a microcosmos of the games industry in southern Sweden, or any games industry really. So there's 20, I think the latest count was 23 companies in this building. 23 companies, everything from single person studio all the way up to a AAA studio, which is using the two top floors by themselves. But also some AA and something in between, a couple of really successful indie teams and everything. And investors and publishers also have offices there. So it's basically a mix of everything, and they have this communal area, the canteen where the coffee machine was, where they have social events, they have professional events. You have your own office, or you can have a desk or whatever it is. And every Friday is a sauna Friday. So if you come by, you can have a sauna. And the balcony, they usually, whenever there's a big sports tournament, for instance, they rig a TV up and you can watch the football World Cup or whatever it might be. They also do game jams and play testing and stuff for within the building, depending on. So everyone is free to suggest what they want to do and organize stuff within the building. So and the game habitat, the main goal of this organization is basically to create the best possible place for games and game developers. So it's very much focused on community. Yeah, it's run by a guy who used to be a game developer at a quite successful studio. He's been in the business for super long. Everyone who is supporting or working there or in the board are super supportive of the games industry and have a lot of industry experience and knowledge from every other aspect basically. And it follows very well into the Swedish mindset of work-life balance. Diogo, you mentioned the fika. I should perhaps explain what fika is, because it's a very Swedish thing. So fika is a concept where you and a colleague or a friend or anyone else, basically, you sit down and have a cup of coffee and usually some kind of snack, either a cinnamon roll or something else. And there is no predetermined length of how long a fika can be. It can be 10 minutes and can be 2 hours, depending a little bit. And it's usually a very social thing where you can, and it's not exclusive to social events. You can also do business or like work stuff, but it's supposed to be a place where you can have a dialogue for whatever you're talking about. And it's an open, very secure space. So that's the point of what we call a fika. We love a fika in Sweden. We try to do it as much as possible, preferably during work, because if you're an employer in Sweden and say no, you can't take breaks whenever you want to, you'll never find any employees, because fika is so ingrained in the culture. And it's just a great way to relax, reset, and discuss something. And quite often, at least in my case, that's where the most of the good ideas that I come up with at work come in these very small, unofficial settings. So it's a great thing, and we do it a lot.
Yep, and just to mention, because I was laughing when you said the coffee machine again, it's a really big coffee machine. Okay, um,
We are
so
actually, just to mention like a funny thing about coffee in Sweden. I don't know if people know, but I think after the Finns, Swedes drink the most coffee in the world, and we have quite strong coffee, and we drink somewhere between 6 and 10 cups a day on average. So yeah, we have to have the massive coffee machine, otherwise we wouldn't be able to get through the dark months of the year. So
to kind of put a bow on this, what is the opportunity that anyone in the world which is either starting out or already well set up as a game dev that can make use of in terms of Game Hub? That's something that surprised me very positively when you said, "Look, this is available for you or anyone that you know."
for sure. So perhaps I should start with a bit bigger scope, because we have spoken about game habitat, but there is more to the southern Sweden games industry, or the games industry in Sweden. So many of you might have heard about, many of the future listeners of this podcast have probably heard about the Nordics or the Swedish games industry, that it's doing very, very well. And it's a fantastic journey that the Swedish game developer industry is doing at the moment. But what people don't know is perhaps where the games or the studios are coming from. So we have 4 major clusters in Sweden. We have one in the north called Arctic Game. It's a fantastic place, by the way, if you like the aurora and northern lights and skiing and stuff. It's a fantastic place. Then we have one in Skövde, which is where Valheim and Goat Simulator and those like it's an indie mecca. They're really good at making indie games. And then we have Stockholm, which is of course the capital in the east. Skövde is in the west. And in Stockholm, you have some of the bigger studios. King has an office there, EA Dice, for instance. And they also have a big community there. And then we have the south, where I'm from. We have, it's one of the more dynamic places, I would say. We have about 120 studios by the latest count. Everything from, again, indie developer, one-man teams, all the way up to AAA studios. So King, Massive, Avalanche, Shark Mob, and a few others are the main bigger names. And then we have everything below that, all the way down to single developers. And they are within walking distance from each other, all of these. And we have 1,500 developers in a very, very small area in the city of Malmö. So you can literally walk from Massive's office to Shark Mob's. It's 20 minutes away. And in the middle of the city, we have Game Habitat, which is this game developer hub. And my organization, together with the city of Malmö, we're now getting to the opportunity that Diogo was talking about. So at this Game Habitat, we have an office that we sponsor. So any studio, any company, any student, even anyone who is in some way related to the games industry, they can come to southern Sweden, to Malmö, and use this office for anywhere from 1 day up to 90 days rent free. And the why it's capped at 90 days is because most countries have a 90-day tourist visa to Sweden. So you get to the office, the office is fully furnished, so you only have to bring your computer, and you get to do whatever you like, basically whatever you want to do in your own office at home or at the studio you're at, wherever you're at. You can do that here. It's your office away from the office, basically. If you want to network with smaller studios or bigger studios, you can do that. If you're looking for investors or publishers, we can connect you to that network. And if you just want to have a workcation or a vacation even, you can use this office as a base camp, and then you can explore southern Sweden, Copenhagen, Denmark, the rest of Sweden, the rest of Europe if you're from outside of the European Union, and so on. And what we do, and also if you stay longer than a month, we help you find an apartment for with a discounted rent, which is also fully furnished. So so you don't have like trouble like live, or you don't have to live in a hotel, which would be very expensive for 90 days. And we also make you an honorary Swedish company. This is not actually like a thing, but it's something we say that we do, so we can give you the services that we offer our local Swedish companies. So if you are a small company and you're looking for investors, for instance, not only will we connect you with our local investors, but also the international ones. Um, and you're also already an international company visiting southern Sweden, so you will get those services as well. So we give you both sides of what the offer that we have. And if you want us to leave you alone, that you just want to sit in your office and code for 90 days, that's totally fine. You can do that. But we can also help you customize a visitation schedule for whatever it is that you want to do during your stay. And the kicker, or like at least for me, is that there is no paperwork on your end. So even if you stay 1 day or 90 days, there is nothing that says, oh, you have to start a studio or invest or do some kind of business in southern Sweden. This is only to, as we started out, which was really nice, I think, that when we started this program or this podcast, is that it's about sharing opportunities and networking and getting new friends. This is exactly why it's here. Anyone who we have quite a lot of international game developers. Almost half of all the game developers in southern Sweden are from outside of Sweden. So if you have a friend who is from, I don't know, France or the UK or India or whatever, you can invite them. As long as they have something to do with the games industry, they can come and use this office while you hang out with them. You can show them around or whatever. Or if you're just curious about how Swedes do business or how Swedes do game development or whatever it is that you might be interested in, or you're an investor that's looking for new and exciting projects, that's also an idea to why come here. So that is, and something I should mention, that this is also a pilot project. So we haven't really found the limits of what we can do and what we can't do for this program yet. But we're more than interested into hearing creative ideas from people who are willing to use it. We have done this program now for two years, to a bit more, 2.5 years, I think. And this is the first year where we have people lining up to use it, actually. So until the middle of summer this year, we have studios that are queued up to use this office. So far only from Europe, but hopefully we'll have from all over the globe at some point. But we are already in discussion with people who are looking to use it after summer as well. But always happy to speak to more people who are curious. And so far, most people are staying for more than a month to make the most of this opportunity. So it's a really fantastic program. I never thought it would do this good. We started it as a marketing gimmick, basically, something to bring headlines, but now we're realizing that this is actually a feature that people want. So that's fantastic for us.
Yeah, and I think it wraps around very well to what, again, how we started this, which is that's what developers are looking for. They're looking for those connections. And again, even if you're not a developer, if you are a social community manager,
Yeah.
and you want to connect to other studios, you can go around, see who is there,
Yeah,
and
for
be like,
sure.
who needs one?
Yeah.
And I think that's how finding unexpected opportunities is all about. It's rethinking the way what does business mean,
Yeah.
and that it doesn't mean to be in a suit.
No,
You
for sure.
in a place somewhere. It can mean just to have some holidays
Yeah.
in Sweden
Yeah.
while working.
And that is it's something that I, especially when I talk to nothing against Americans, but Americans usually, they want to get down to business very, very quickly. So they are willing to do business over the phone, or like, yeah, we'll just send me the bank account and we'll transfer whatever. And Swedes, at least in my opinion, are not like that. We want to meet the person we're doing business with. We want to talk to them, because I mean, it's fantastic that you can do stuff over the internet and like this, sitting in Diogo is in Portugal, and Mafalda, I think you were in Germany, no? Or did you
Yeah,
just
I'm in
come?
Berlin.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm in Lund in southern Sweden. So we can do this digitally and we can have this, but we want to have a fika with the people we're doing business
Yeah.
with. That's where true character someone shines through. So that is what it's all about, to get connections, to talk to people. And our games industry in Sweden won't survive unless we have international connections, because it's already so international, and we like talking to people. That's where the magic happens. So
Yeah, and I would say it just expands not only to you directly, but it's just about the industry as a whole, because making games is about different people with different in different disciplines. It's a multimedia process of people brought together to do this one thing.
yeah.
So yeah, it is games. So
And
it's
just
just
to yeah,
everything.
and
It's like so pretty, in a bow.
yeah. And just a couple of things. I know I mean, I know Diogo took some videos and pictures when he was visiting, and I think that there's going to be some pictures and so forth shown that I can share with you as well. And of course, there's a website for those that want to check this out, read some testimonials from the people who have used the office so far. I assume there's going to be a link below. Press subscribe. Yeah, and all the other things, but go check out the links, and you can see the sauna, you can see the common area that Diogo described, and all of the others. And it's not just the city of Malmö. I have to sell the other ecosystems in the vicinity as well. But there, we mentioned game jams, for instance, and there is a fantastic game jam in just a couple of hours train ride away from Malmö in the summer. It's a very, if you have seen Princess Mononoke, the Studio Ghibli movie, and the forests and everything, there is a very forested area where this or perhaps Totoro is a better likeness to the, so it's very nature and very peaceful. And every year there's a lot of game developers from all over Sweden and the Nordics that gather in this old red cabin out in the woods, and they have a 2-day game jam with also talks, like sort of like small TED talk and everything about game development, and it's super nice. It's in the middle of the Swedish summer. It's a fantastic place called Blekinge, that has this creative coast, I think they call it, which is fantastic. And then there is also a bit further north from that, there is a communal house for game developers, very similar to Game Habitat, but it's more like a small community that does everything. They have their own garden where they grow their own vegetables. So, and you rotate, like taking care of making food and dishes and everything. And that's also a very international place, which is fantastic for game developers as well. So we don't, if you use our office concept of our program, we don't limit you. You don't have to stay in Malmö. We actually encourage you to go to other parts of Sweden as well, to explore all of it. Because if we are not right for you, we want you to find the right place.
For sure, I will be wanting to get to know more about those other places, because I'm very curious about them. I actually tried to know a little bit more about but the lack of planning didn't allow for that.
So it's next episode's joke. It's like it's like we're going there, like
exactly.
read you.
So, accompanied to what you were saying, yes, I'm going to show some of the videos I did. I'll probably show also a little bit of our lunch, as you may
probably remember. Yeah, I said
I'm in Sweden. I'll have to try the meatballs. So you took me to a place to have some meatballs. But yeah, that's exactly it. And I think it's an amazing offer that you are showcasing there. So thank you, and thank you for being a part of our first pilot episode where everything is went really well and perfectly well
before the recording and during the recording.
I think so.
And we totally have a name.
Yeah, totally have a name.
For next episode, it will be Mafalda's adventure. So I do hope that you join us here. The objective is for this to not be longer than an hour, and I think we are perfectly well within that. Also, to end, why is Mafalda in Berlin right now?
Oh yeah, we wanted to have the first episode have a special surprise in the end. So for those listeners that stayed with us, we are revealing that I'm leaving Nerd Monkeys in the hands of Diogo again. So beware, everyone. Diogo is now running the joint all by himself. Because I got this amazing new opportunity to move to Berlin, work for a new studio that is going to be started from the ground up with some very talented people that come from not only the game industry, but the animation industry as well. And for those who know me knows that that's my background and what I wanted to do when I grew up, to work with film. And I'll have more news on that later, but the news right now is just like a little section of what Nerd Monkeys has been with us here at the wheel is going to change, but we saved a lot of news, a lot of direction. It wasn't a decision that we made from one day to the other, and
definitely not.
Yeah, because I wanted to have plans, Diogo. Plans.
This has been planned for over half a year now, or something like that.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah.
And another thing that it's like we do a lot of things together for the game industry in Portugal, and it's very important for us again to have the local side of what we do connected to the world side of what we do, right? We keep traveling, we keep people knowing people like Olof, and they're doing amazing things in their region, and our heart is still in Portugal, specifically in Lisbon, because that's where we're living right now. And we didn't want to not have those experiences be shared and not still be building something for our community. And this is a little bit of our way to keep that legacy while we keep tabs on each other. It's like, okay, we learned this, now we met these people, and we're still giving back while hopefully doing monthly. I don't know. Let's see how this works.
No, let's not
discuss dates.
But whichever it is,
we'll have episodes, and they will come.
They will come. But it is true. One of the reasons these podcasts exist is just so we can keep in touch. I am, of course, sad that this moment arrived, even though I knew it for a long time, and even before that this moment would arrive one day. But I'm also very proud and very happy for Mafalda. I am sad, just to add that, because you definitely made my work life and as a friend, you made my life easier and better, and for sure, even though I don't like to admit, it will be for sure a little bit worse without you around. But I am very happy and very proud of you, and I do hope that you have a lot of success with your new project, Mafalda.
And we'll see each other in all the events.
Yeah, and we'll see each other every time. Yeah. So, yes, that's the big news for today's episode. We'll guarantee this
style of news every single episode, like every time. Like, no, don't.
Yeah, we'll always end an episode with a big bang.
Big bang, yeah.
That's our motto from now on. Maybe that's the name of the podcast. Who knows?
We'll think about it.
Anyway, Olof, thank you very much for being part of our first episode.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor. I've never been on a podcast before. I listened to quite a few, so it's nice to be on the other side of the mic, so to say. And if anyone listening have any questions, I assume you can get in touch with either Mafalda or Diogo, or check out the website. My contact information is
below.
exactly below, somewhere below, or up in the corner or something, like whatever the YouTubers does. And you can ask whatever you like. The harder and more creative questions, the better, the more fun I will have at work. So looking forward to that. And congratulations, Mafalda, to your next steps. And now you're getting closer to Sweden, so perhaps you can stop by, and we can have a fika someday. But thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And I will try the fika thing. I like it. We're Portuguese. We do coffee. That's it.
And very good sweets. I always forget the name, but I've been in Portugal a few times, and you have these small round
pastel de nata.
Yes.
Yeah. We have a lot more that are sweet.
Oh yeah.
And thank you everyone who's listening. It has been a pleasure coming back to podcast, because I haven't done this in over a year now.
Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
Hej då.
Ciao.